The rejection happened on my 18th birthday, in front of the entire Shadow Moon pack. I, Alpha Riker Blackwood, reject you, Sarah Ashwood, as my mate and future Luna. The words hit me like physical blows. Around us the pack gasped, some in shock, others in barely concealed satisfaction. I stood frozen in the centre of the pack gathering, feeling the mate bond that had just snapped into place only hours ago now shattering into 1,000 pieces. "Riker, please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Don't." His grey eyes were cold, emotionless. "You're an Omega, Sarah, the weakest wolf in the pack. I can't have a Luna who can barely shift, who has no power, no strength, no presence. The Shadow Moon pack deserves better. I deserve better." Behind him, his chosen companion, Vivian Cross, the daughter of our beta, smiled triumphantly. She was everything I wasn't: strong, beautiful, a skilled warrior with alpha blood in her veins. She'd been pursuing Riker for years, and now she'd won. "I accept your rejection," I forced the words out, each one tearing my heart apart. The moment I spoke them, the bond dissolved completely, leaving a gaping wound in my chest that I knew would never fully heal. "Good." Riker turned away from me without another glance. "You have until sunrise to leave Shadow Moon territory. If you're found here after that, you'll be treated as a rogue." "But this is my home." "Not anymore." He walked away, Vivian clinging to his arm, leaving me standing alone as the pack dispersed. No one met my eyes. No one offered comfort. I was an Omega, the lowest rank, barely tolerated even before this humiliation. My mother found me an hour later, crying in my childhood bedroom as I packed my meagre belongings. "Oh, sweetheart," she pulled me into her arms and I broke down completely. "I'm so sorry. I knew he was your mate when I saw you two at the ceremony, but I hoped he'd see your worth." "There is no worth, Mama. I'm weak, useless. My wolf can barely manifest. I can't even shift fully without passing out." I pulled back, wiping my tears angrily. Maybe he's right. Maybe I don't deserve to be Luna. "Don't you dare say that." My mother gripped my shoulders, her eyes fierce. "You listen to me, Sarah. You are worth more than that arrogant boy could ever comprehend. Your father knew it. I know it. And one day, you'll know it too." My father had died when I was 10, killed in a rogue attack while protecting the pack. He'd been an Omega too, a healer, not a warrior. The pack had tolerated him because of his medical skills, but they'd never respected him. "I inherited his weakness," I said bitterly. "You inherited his gift. The ability to see people's true nature, to heal, to sense things others can't." She pressed something into my hand, a small pendant on a silver chain. "Your father gave this to me before he died. He said, when you came of age, when you faced your greatest trial, you should have it. He said it would help you remember who you really are." The pendant was beautiful, a silver moon with strange symbols etched around its circumference. The moment it touched my skin, I felt a strange warmth, like recognition. "What does it mean?" "I don't know. Your father said you'd understand when the time was right." She kissed my forehead. "Go, sweetheart. Leave this place. Find yourself. And when you're ready, show them all what a true Omega can become." I left Shadow Moon territory just before sunrise, with nothing but a backpack, my father's pendant, and a broken heart. I didn't look back. 3 years passed. 3 years of wandering from territory to territory, never staying long enough to put down roots. I worked odd jobs, waitressing in human towns, cleaning, helping in clinics where my healing instincts were useful, even without a medical degree. I avoided pack territories when I could. When I couldn't, I kept my head down, hid my Omega scent with suppressants, and moved on quickly. Rogues were barely tolerated, and Omega rogues were considered worthless, prey for stronger wolves, targets for cruelty. But something was changing in me. It started small, moments when my senses sharpened beyond normal werewolf capabilities, times when I could feel the emotions of people around me, sense their intentions. Once I'd touched a sick child in a clinic and felt power flow from my hands into her body, healing an infection that should have required antibiotics. I'd stopped using suppressants 6 months ago when I realized they were actually dampening something inside me, something that was trying to emerge. Without them, my wolf felt stronger, more present. I still couldn't shift fully. That ability remained frustratingly out of reach, but I could feel her now, constantly, like a second heartbeat. The pendant my father gave me had become warm against my skin, the symbols occasionally glowing with a faint silver light when I was emotional or stressed. I'd tried to research the symbols but found nothing. It was as if they were from a language that didn't exist in any known records. I was working in a small diner in a human town called Millbrook when everything changed. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was wiping down tables when 3 werewolves walked in. I could smell them immediately, even though they were trying to pass as human. They were from the Silver Peak Pack based on the territorial markers I'd noticed on the edge of town. They sat in my section, and I approached with practiced subservience. After 3 years as a rogue, I'd learned to make myself invisible, non-threatening. "What can I get you?" I asked, not meeting their eyes. Well, the leader, a tall man with alpha presence, looked me over with interest that made my skin crawl. "What's an Omega doing working in a human town? Shouldn't you be serving your pack?" "I'm a rogue, no pack." I kept my voice neutral. "Even better." He grinned, showing too many teeth. "An unclaimed Omega. Boys, I think we just found ourselves some entertainment for the evening." My heart raced, but I kept my expression calm. "I'll get your orders." His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, grip bruising. "I don't think so. You're coming with us. Unless you want us to make a scene in front of all these humans." I could feel his 2 companions flanking me, blocking escape routes. The other diners were oblivious. Humans couldn't sense the danger I was in. "Let me go," I said quietly. "Make me, Omega." He pulled me closer. "You're nothing. Worthless. You should be grateful we're even paying attention to you." Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was 3 years of running, of hiding, of being treated as less than nothing. Maybe it was the echo of Riker's rejection still burning in my heart. Maybe it was whatever had been building inside me all this time, finally reaching critical mass. The pendant against my chest flared hot. I said, my voice came out different, layered, echoing with power I didn't understand, "Let me go." Power exploded out of me in a wave of silver light. The Alpha flew backward, crashing into the opposite wall. His companions collapsed to their knees, whimpering, their wolves forced into submission by a dominance that shouldn't exist in an Omega. The humans in the diner froze. Then their eyes glazed over, some kind of compulsion making them forget what they'd just seen. I stared at my hands in shock. They were glowing with silver light, the same light that was now emanating from the pendant. The symbols on it were burning bright, rotating slowly. What are you?" The Alpha gasped from where he'd fallen, staring at me with terror and awe. "I don't know," I whispered truthfully. Then I ran. I grabbed my backpack from the employee room and bolted out the back door, into the forest beyond town. Behind me I heard the Alpha shouting, but I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned, until the town was miles behind me, until I collapsed in a clearing, shaking and terrified. What had I just done? Omegas didn't have power like that. Omegas couldn't force Alphas to submit, couldn't release waves of dominance, couldn't make humans forget what they'd seen. That kind of power belonged to Alpha Kings, to ancient bloodlines, to legends, not to broken, rejected Omegas. I looked down at the pendant, still glowing faintly. What are you? What am I? The symbols pulsed once as if in answer, but I still couldn't read them. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. The Oracle of the Moon lived in the Mistwood territory, a neutral zone where no pack claimed dominance. She was said to be ancient, possibly immortal, with knowledge of werewolf history going back thousands of years. Most dismissed her as a myth, but I'd heard enough whispered stories to believe she was real. If anyone could tell me what was happening to me, it would be her. The journey to Mistwood took 2 weeks. I travelled carefully, avoiding pack territories, staying in human towns when possible. The pendant had stopped glowing, but I could feel it humming against my skin like it was alive. My wolf was different too. Stronger, more insistent. She wanted to shift, to run, to hunt. But I was afraid. Afraid of what might happen if I finally managed a full transformation. Afraid of what I might become. Mistwood was beautiful and eerie. Ancient trees covered in silver moss, fog that never quite lifted, the constant sound of wind chimes though there was no wind. I felt eyes watching me from the shadows, but nothing approached. I found the oracle's dwelling at the heart of the woods, a cottage that looked like it had grown from the trees themselves, organic and impossible. The door opened before I could knock. "Come in, child. I've been expecting you." The oracle was not what I expected. She looked young, maybe 30, with silver hair and eyes that swirled with starlight. She wore simple robes and moved with inhuman grace. "You've been expecting me." I stepped inside. The cottage was larger on the inside than outside, filled with books, crystals, and artifacts that hummed with power. "The moment you activated your pendant, I felt it. The Moonborn bloodline has awakened." She gestured to a chair. "Sit. We have much to discuss, and little time." "Moonborn? I don't understand." "Your father didn't tell your mother the whole truth. He couldn't. The knowledge was too dangerous." The oracle poured tea that smelled of night-blooming flowers. "He wasn't just an Omega, Sarah. He was the last guardian of an ancient bloodline, one that goes back to the first wolves created by the moon goddess herself." My hands trembled as I took the tea. "That's impossible. The first wolves were all alphas. Powerful. A common misconception. The moon goddess created 3 bloodlines: Alpha for strength and leadership, Beta for loyalty and support, and Moonborn for balance and power beyond comprehension." She leaned forward. "The Moonborn were Omegas in rank, but gods in power. They were the moon goddess's chosen, her voice among the wolves, her instruments of justice and mercy. But no one's ever mentioned, because they were hunted to extinction, or so everyone believed." The oracle smiled sadly. "The alphas feared them. How could they rule when there were wolves who could command even alpha kings with a thought? So they worked together, across all territories, and killed every Moonborn they could find. Your father's line went into hiding, each generation producing only one heir, waiting for the time when it would be safe to emerge again." I touched the pendant. This was his, and his father's before him, and his mother's before that. It's been passed down through your bloodline for 3,000 years. It contains a fragment of the moon goddess's own power, and it activates only when the bearer faces their darkest moment and chooses strength over submission. "My rejection," I whispered. "Yes, when Alpha Riker rejected you, when you accepted that rejection and chose to leave rather than fight for a position you deserved, you passed the first test. The pendant recognized your strength." The oracle's eyes glowed brighter. "But Sarah, the awakening has only begun. What you did in that diner, forcing alphas to submit, erasing human memories, that's just the surface of your power. What else can I do? Everything. A fully awakened Moonborn can command any wolf, regardless of rank, heal with a touch, see the truth of any heart, shapeshift into any form, and channel the moon goddess's power directly." She paused. "You could end wars with a word. You could destroy entire packs if you chose. You are, quite literally, the most powerful werewolf alive." The teacup slipped from my fingers, but the oracle caught it with a gesture before it could fall. "I don't want that power," I said. "I just want to be left alone." "That's no longer an option. The moment you released your power in that diner, every Alpha King within 5 territories felt it. They're looking for you right now, and when they find you, they'll either try to control you or kill you." The oracle stood. You need training. You need to learn to control your abilities before someone forces you to use them. How long? Months, maybe years. The moonborn powers are vast. Your father spent his entire life mastering only a fraction of them. I don't have years. You said they're already looking for me? Then you'll learn quickly. The oracle's expression turned serious. There's something else you should know. The mate bond, the one with Alpha Riker, it's not fully severed. My heart stuttered. What? But we both accepted the rejection. You accepted it. He said the words, but deep down, his wolf never truly let go. Rejected mate bonds can be rekindled under certain circumstances, and with your power awakening. She shook her head. You're going to draw him to you like a moth to flame. When he feels your true power, when he realizes what he rejected, he'll come crawling back. I don't want him back. Good, because taking him back would be a mistake. He rejected you when you were vulnerable, cast you out to protect his own pride. That's not worthy of a moonborn's love. The oracle moved to a shelf and pulled down an ancient book. But you should know, there are others who will want to claim you. Alpha kings, powerful wolves who'll see you as a prize to be won. Your power makes you desirable, but it also makes you a target. Then I'll stay hidden. You can't hide forever. Eventually, you'll have to make a choice. Remain in the shadows and let the werewolf world continue in its corrupt, broken state, or step into your power and reshape everything. I looked at the pendant, glowing softly against my chest. 3 years ago, I'd been a weak, rejected Omega, with nothing but heartbreak and shame. Now, apparently, I was some kind of ancient supernatural powerhouse. The moon goddess definitely had a twisted sense of humor. Teach me, I said finally. Teach me everything. And then, I'll decide what to do with this power. The oracle smiled. Your father would be proud. Let's begin. 6 months in Mistwood changed everything. The oracle, her real name was Celine, though she rarely used it, was a ruthless but effective teacher. She pushed me beyond every limit I thought I had, forcing me to access powers I didn't know existed. The first month was learning to shift properly. Not just the partial shift most werewolves did, but the complete transformation. When I finally managed it, I discovered my wolf form wasn't the small, weak creature I'd always thought it would be. I was massive, larger than any alpha I'd ever seen, with fur that shimmered silver-white in the moonlight. My eyes glowed with the same ethereal light as the pendant, and when I howled, every creature within miles felt compelled to answer. You're beautiful, Selene said when I shifted back, exhausted and exhilarated. A true moonborn wolf. This is what your father looked like, before he learned to suppress his true form to hide among normal wolves. The second month was dominance training, learning to project my power, to command other wolves, to enforce my will without physical force. Selene brought in volunteers, wolves from various packs who owed her favors, and I practiced on them. At first, it felt wrong, cruel even, making proud alphas kneel, forcing betas to submit, commanding warriors to freeze in place with just my voice. It's not cruelty if you use it justly, Selene corrected. Dominance is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used to build or destroy. You need to be comfortable wielding it before you can decide how to use it. By the end of the second month, I could make an entire room of alphas submit with a thought. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. The third month was healing. I'd always had an instinct for it, but Selena taught me to channel the power deliberately. I learned to sense injuries and illnesses, to pull pain from bodies, to accelerate healing that would normally take weeks. Your father was one of the greatest healers our kind has ever known, Selene told me as I successfully cured a wolf of silver poisoning, something that should have been fatal. He could bring wolves back from the brink of death. You have the same gift. The fourth month was combat. Selene was ancient and powerful, and she didn't hold back. She threw me around the training ground like a rag doll until I learned to combine my moonborn powers with physical fighting. I learned to move faster than eyes could follow, to hit with strength that could shatter stone, to sense attacks before they came. By the end of the month, I could hold my own against Celine. Barely. "You're a warrior now," she said after a particularly brutal session left us both bloody and laughing, "not just a healer or a leader. You can protect yourself and others." The 5th month was mental powers, reading emotions, sensing lies, projecting thoughts, even manipulating memories if necessary. This was the hardest training. It required a delicacy and control that didn't come naturally to me. "Your mind is your greatest weapon," Celine insisted. "Physical power can be matched, dominance can be resisted by the truly strong-willed. But mental power, the ability to know your enemy's thoughts, to see their fears and desires, that's unstoppable." By the end of the 5th month, I could read a wolf's entire emotional state with a glance, sense deception instantly, and project feelings of calm or fear into others. The 6th month was integration, learning to use all my powers together seamlessly, without thought. Celine created scenarios, ambushes, political negotiations, rescue missions, and I had to respond using whatever combination of abilities the situation required. "You're not just powerful anymore," she said during our final training session. "You're dangerous, in the best possible way." I'd also changed physically. The training had transformed my body. I was stronger, faster, more confident. My hair had developed silver streaks that matched my wolf form. My eyes, once plain brown, now had flecks of silver that glowed when I used my powers. I looked like someone who could command kingdoms. I felt like it too. "What now?" I asked Celine on my last night in Mistwood. "I'm trained. I'm powerful. But I still don't know what I'm supposed to do with all this." "That's because it's not my decision to make. It's yours." Celine handed me a sealed letter. "But before you decide, you should know. The werewolf world is changing. The Alpha Kings are gathering for the Summit of Kings next month. It happens once every decade, where all the major alphas meet to discuss territory, laws, and the future of our kind. Why does that matter to me? Because this year, they're voting on a new law. One that would make Omegas official property of their packs, unable to leave without Alpha permission, required to accept any mate chosen for them." Celine's expression was grave. "It's being pushed by the Northern Alliance, some of the most powerful and conservative Alphas. If it passes, Omegas everywhere will become slaves in all but name." Rage burned through me. They can't. They can. And they will, unless someone stops them. Celine met my eyes. "The summit is held in neutral territory. Anyone can attend, but only Alpha Kings can vote. Unless what? Unless a Moonborn appears and invokes the ancient right. It's an old law from before the Moonborn were hunted. A Moonborn can challenge any vote, override any decision, even command the Alpha Kings themselves if the cause is just." She smiled. "They can't vote to enslave Omegas if a Moonborn forbids it. They'll know what I am the moment I use that power. Yes, you'll be exposed. Every Alpha in the world will know you exist, will know what you are." Celine's voice softened. "You'll never be able to hide again. They'll hunt you, try to control you, attempt to kill you or mate you or use you for their own purposes. Your peaceful life as a wanderer will be over forever." I thought about all the Omegas I'd met over the years, the ones beaten down by their packs, treated as worthless, denied basic dignity. The she-wolves forced into matings they didn't want, unable to refuse without being labelled rogues. The young Omegas who grew up believing they were nothing, just like I had. I touched the pendant warm against my skin. "My father gave his life protecting others," I said quietly. "He had this power and chose to use it helping people even though it meant hiding what he really was. I think that's what Moonborn are supposed to do. Not rule, not dominate, but protect those who can't protect themselves. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then." I looked at Celine. "Where is this summit being held?" She smiled, proud and sad. "The Gathering Grounds, in the heart of the Western Territories. 3 weeks from now." "Then I guess I have 3 weeks to prepare." I stood, feeling the weight of my decisions settle over me like a mantle. Thank you, Selena, for everything. Don't thank me yet. What you're about to do, it's going to change the werewolf world forever. You'll make powerful enemies. I've been making enemies since I was born an Omega. At least now I can fight back. Celine pulled me into an unexpected hug. Your father would be so proud of you. Go, Moonborn. Show them what real power looks like. I left Mistwood the next morning, heading toward the Western Territories and whatever fate awaited me there. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running away from something. I was running toward it. The gathering grounds were impressive. A massive natural amphitheatre carved into a mountain, with stone seats arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Hundreds of werewolves filled the space, representing packs from across the continent, but the real power sat in the inner circle, the Alpha Kings. There were 12 of them, each ruling over major territories. I recognized some from Celine's descriptions. Alpha Darius of the Northern Alliance, cold and calculating. Alpha Marcus of the Eastern Provinces, known for his brutality. Alpha Eleanor of the Southern Territories, one of the few female alphas and surprisingly progressive. And there, sitting with the Western representatives, was Riker. He'd been promoted to Alpha King after his father's death a year ago. He looked older, harder, more powerful than I remembered. Vivian sat beside him wearing a Luna's crown, looking smug and beautiful. My heart didn't ache when I saw him. That surprised me. 3 years and 6 months since the rejection, and I felt nothing. The broken girl who'd loved him was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who didn't need his approval anymore. I'd arrived early, hiding my presence among the crowd of lower-ranking wolves who'd come to observe. I wore simple clothes, kept my power suppressed, looked like just another nobody, but the pendant was hidden under my shirt, warm and ready. The summit began with traditional ceremonies, acknowledgement of territories, reading of old laws, reports from each region. It was all very formal and boring until they reached the new business. We call for a vote on Proposition 47, Alpha Darius announced, his voice carrying through the amphitheatre. The Omega Protection Act. Protection Act. They were calling it protection. The proposal is simple, Darius continued. Omegas are the most vulnerable members of our society. They need structure, guidance, protection from their own weakness. This law would ensure every Omega has a pack to care for them, an Alpha to guide them, and the security of knowing their place. You mean the law would make Omegas property? Alpha Eleanor countered. Unable to leave packs, unable to refuse mates, stripped of basic autonomy. This isn't protection, it's enslavement. Strong words, Elena. But Omegas aren't like us. They're weak, submissive by nature, unable to care for themselves. We'd be doing them a service. Darius smiled coldly. Unless you think Omegas should be allowed to roam as rogues, vulnerable to any threat. I think Omegas should have the same rights as any wolf. That's because you're soft. Sentimental. Darius looked around the circle. How many of you have dealt with Omega problems? Omegas who refuse good matches, who run away from their packs, who cause disruption because they think they deserve more than their station? This law would solve all of that. By making them slaves, Eleanor repeated. By giving them purpose. Darius gestured dismissively. We vote. All in favour of Proposition 47. 7 hands went up. 7 out of 12 Alpha Kings, enough to pass the law. I saw Riker's hand among them. Of course, the Alpha who'd rejected me for being weak would absolutely support a law that made Omega's property. The irony was almost funny. All opposed? 5 hands, including Elena's. The proposition passes, effective immediately, all Omegas. I invoke the ancient right. My voice rang out across the amphitheatre, amplified by power I didn't bother to hide anymore. Every head turned toward me as I stepped out of the crowd, climbing down the stone steps toward the central platform. The pendant blazed to life, visible even through my shirt, casting silver light across the assembled wolves. Who dares interrupt? Darius started, then froze as he felt my power wash over him. What are you? I am Sarah Ashwood, daughter of healer Thomas Ashwood, descendant of the Moonborn bloodline. I reached the platform, and the 12 Alpha Kings instinctively stood, recognizing a power greater than their own. And I invoke the ancient right to challenge this vote. Silence. Complete total silence. Then chaos. Moonborn, that's impossible. The bloodline is extinct. It's a trick. Silence. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. My voice carried the weight of divine authority, and every wolf in the amphitheatre fell silent, compelled by power they couldn't resist. The Moonborn were never extinct. We were hiding, waiting. And now I'm here to remind you all of the old laws, the ones you've conveniently forgotten. I turned to face Darius directly. The ancient rite states that any Moonborn can challenge any vote of the Alpha Kings if said vote contradicts the Moon Goddess's will. Do you contest my right to invoke it? Darius's face was pale. No. The ancient rite is law, but you must prove you're truly Moonborn. Gladly. I released my full power. Silver light exploded from my body, filling the entire amphitheatre. My wolf rose to the surface, visible as a ghostly overlay on my human form, massive, ethereal, beautiful. The pendant symbols rotated around me in rings of power, ancient and terrible. And every wolf in the gathering grounds, Alpha Kings included, dropped to their knees, forced into submission by dominance that brooked no resistance. All except one. Alpha Eleanor remained standing, not because she was resisting, but because I'd specifically exempted her. She looked at me with awe and hope. I am Moonborn, I said, my voice echoing with power. I am the Moon Goddess's chosen, her voice among the wolves, and I say that Proposition 47 is an abomination that contradicts everything our kind is supposed to stand for. I pulled back my power slightly, allowing the Alpha Kings to raise their heads but not stand. Omegas are not weak, they are not property, they are not lesser beings who need to be controlled. I walked among the kneeling kings, meeting each of their eyes. Omegas are the balance, they are healers, peacemakers, the heart of every pack. They possess strengths that have nothing to do with dominance or physical power, and they deserve the same freedom, the same choices, the same respect as any Alpha. But the law has passed, Darius managed, his voice strained. 7 votes. I overturn it. By the ancient right, by the power vested in me by the Moon Goddess herself, I declare Proposition 47 null and void. I turn to face all 12 kings. Moreover, I'm implementing a new law. From this day forward, no Omega can be forced to accept a mate they don't choose. No Omega can be held in a pack against their will. No Omega can be punished for leaving to find a better life. Any Alpha who violates this law will answer to me. You can't just... Alpha Marcus started. I can. I am. The ancient rite gives a Moonborn absolute authority over pack law. You know this. Your predecessors knew this. It's why they tried to wipe out my bloodline. I smiled without humour. But they failed, and now you'll all have to live with the consequences. I released them then, pulling my power back. The Alpha Kings stood slowly, looking shaken and furious and afraid, all except Riker. He was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. Sarah? His voice was barely a whisper. You can't be Sarah. Hello, Riker. I met his eyes, saw the recognition, the shock, the dawning horror. Surprised? You're supposed to be dead. I heard you died 2 years ago. You heard wrong. I've been alive, training, learning what I really am. I moved closer to him, saw him flinch, actually flinch, from my proximity. Tell me, Alpha King Riker, do you still think I'm too weak to be Luna? Do you still believe I'm worthless? He couldn't answer. His wolf was forcing him to lower his eyes, recognizing my dominance, acknowledging that I was so far above him in power that comparison was laughable. Vivian beside him looked like she might be sick. "I'm not here for revenge," I told him, my voice softer. "I'm not here to punish you for rejecting me, though the moon goddess knows you deserve it. I'm here because Omegas everywhere are suffering under laws made by alphas who see them as less than nothing. I'm here to change that." "The Pax won't accept this," Darius warned, having recovered some of his composure. "You can override our vote, yes, but you can't force every alpha in every territory to comply. They'll resist. There will be war. Then there will be war." I turned to face him fully, but it will be a short war, because any alpha who stands against me will fall. I am moonborn. I am the moon goddess's will made flesh, and I will not tolerate the continued oppression of my people. "Your people?" Alpha Eleanor asked, curious rather than hostile. "I'm still an Omega. Despite my power, despite my abilities, I was born Omega and I'll die Omega. That's my rank, my identity, my truth." I looked around at all the assembled wolves, and I'm going to make damn sure that no Omega ever has to feel worthless again, that no Omega is ever rejected for being too weak or not good enough, that every Omega knows they have value, power, and purpose. I turned back to the 12 Alpha Kings. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return to your territories and announce the new law. You're going to enforce it. And in 6 months, you're going to report back on how you've improved conditions for Omegas in your regions. Those who comply will have my support. Those who don't..." I let the threat hang in the air. "This is madness," Darius muttered. "One wolf dictating terms to all the Pax." "One moonborn," I corrected. "And I'm not dictating. I'm restoring balance, the way things were always supposed to be before your ancestors decided that might makes right." I pulled the pendant from under my shirt, let them all see it clearly. "This has been passed down through my family for 3,000 years. Every symbol on it represents a moonborn who gave their life protecting the weak, healing the sick, bringing justice to the oppressed. I'm just continuing their work." Alpha Eleanor stepped forward. "I support this. The Southern Territories will comply fully. It's about damn time someone stood up for Omegas." "The Eastern Provinces will comply as well," said another Alpha King I didn't know, clearly preferring cooperation to conflict. One by one, the other kings agreed, some reluctantly, some with genuine support, all of them recognizing they had no real choice. All except 3, Darius, Marcus, and Riker. "I won't bow to this," Darius said. "Moonborn or not, you're one wolf. You can't control all of us, can't be everywhere at once. The Northern Alliance will not comply." "Neither will my territory," Marcus added. Riker said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. So be it. I looked at the 3 of them sadly. "I gave you the chance to do this peacefully. What happens next is on you." I turned and walked away, climbing back up the amphitheatre steps. Behind me, I heard the summit dissolving into chaos. Arguments, accusations, shocked whispers about the Moonborn's return. But I also heard hope. Omega wolves in the crowd were crying, thanking the moon goddess, whispering my name like a prayer. This was what power was for. Not domination, not revenge, protection. The 3 rebellious Alpha Kings declared war on me within a week. They called it the Coalition for Traditional Pack Values. What they really meant was the coalition to keep Omegas oppressed. Darius, Marcus, and Riker combined their forces, nearly 5,000 wolves between them, and marched on the neutral territories where I'd established a temporary base. I'd known this was coming. Selena had warned me that some alphas would resist, would see my existence as a threat to their power. I'd prepared for it. What I hadn't prepared for was how many wolves would join me. Omegas from across the continent fled their packs and came to my banner, hundreds of them, then thousands, all looking for protection, for a chance to fight back against the system that had oppressed them. But it wasn't just Omegas. Betas came too, tired of serving cruel alphas. Even some alphas arrived, disgusted by their peers' actions and willing to fight for change. Within 2 weeks, I had an army of my own, smaller than the coalition's but fierce and motivated. The Oracle came too, along with other powerful beings I'd never known existed. Ancient wolves, witches allied with the moon goddess, even a few vampires who had no love for the Alpha Kings. "You've started a revolution," Celine said as we surveyed my growing forces. "This will reshape werewolf society forever." "That's the idea," I replied. The first battle happened at Silverpine Valley. The coalition forces arrived in formation, 3 armies working in coordination, overwhelming force designed to crush my rebellion before it could truly begin. I walked out alone to meet them. "Is this how you want to handle this?" I called out to the 3 Alpha Kings who stood at the head of their armies. "Thousands of wolves dying because you can't accept change?" "We're not the ones who started this war," Darius shouted back. "You disrupted the natural order, tried to elevate Omegas above their station. We're just restoring balance. By killing anyone who disagrees with you? If necessary." I sighed. "I gave you a chance. Remember that." Then I shifted. My wolf form erupted from my human body, silver-white fur gleaming in the sunlight, massive and terrible and beautiful. I threw back my head and howled, a sound that carried across the entire valley, filled with power and authority and divine will. And the coalition's army began to collapse, not physically, mentally. Every Omega in their ranks felt the call of the Moonborn and turned on their own commanders. Hundreds of wolves who'd been forced to fight suddenly found the courage to resist, to rebel, to join my side. But it wasn't just Omegas. Many betas followed, and even some alphas, their wolves recognizing a power greater than their king's authority. Within minutes, the coalition had lost 1/3 of their forces to desertion. Darius stared in horror. "What have you done?" "Freed them," I said, shifting back to human form. "You can't force wolves to fight against the moon goddess's chosen. Their wolves won't allow it." "Then we'll fight with who remains," Marcus roared, and the remaining forces charged. What followed was barely a battle. I didn't want to kill them. These were wolves who'd been taught wrong values, who believed the lies they'd been fed about Omega weakness, who were genuinely convinced they were fighting for pack stability. So instead of killing, I dominated. I waded into the charging army and released my power in waves. Wolves dropped, forced to submit, unable to fight against dominance that overrode their own alpha's commands. I moved like lightning, disarming warriors, breaking formations, spreading my power across the battlefield like a silver tsunami. Behind me, my own forces engaged the few who managed to resist my dominance. But even they were careful, following my orders to wound rather than kill, to capture rather than slaughter. Within an hour, it was over. The coalition's army knelt in the valley, disarmed and defeated. Their 3 Alpha Kings stood alone, staring at me with expressions ranging from terror to hatred to, in Riker's case, something that looked almost like awe. "It's over," I told them. "Surrender now. Accept the new laws. And you keep your territories. Continue to resist, and I'll remove you from power and install alphas who actually deserve the title." Darius spat at my feet. "I'll never bow to an Omega." "Then you'll be removed," I turned to Marcus. "What about you?" Marcus looked at his defeated army, at the thousands of wolves who'd betrayed him to join my side, at the undeniable evidence that he'd already lost. "I surrender," he said quietly. "The eastern provinces will comply with your laws." "Smart." I turned to Riker last. "And you?" He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. "I can't believe this is you. The weak Omega I rejected. The worthless girl I cast out. I'm not that girl anymore. Thanks to you, actually." I stepped closer. "When you rejected me, you broke me, but you also freed me. If you'd accepted the mate bond, I would have stayed weak, tried to fit into the role of Luna despite being completely unsuited for it. I would never have discovered what I really am." "So I did you a favor?" Riker's voice was bitter. "In a way, yes. You forced me to leave, to survive on my own, to find my true strength." I looked him in the eyes. So, thank you, Alpha Riker, for rejecting me, for giving me the chance to become who I was always meant to be. Something in his expression crumbled. I was wrong about everything. You weren't weak. I was just too blind to see your real strength. And now you see it, along with everyone else. I gestured to the battlefield, the thousands of witnesses. Do you surrender? Will the Western Territories comply? Riker dropped to one knee. I surrender. The Western Territories will comply. And He looked up at me and I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. I'm sorry, Sarah. For everything I said, everything I did, you deserved so much better than how I treated you. Yes, I did. I didn't help him up, didn't accept the apology. But this isn't about you and me anymore. This is about making sure no other Omega has to go through what I did. I turned to address all the assembled wolves, my army and the coalitions combined. The war is over before it truly began. Alpha Darius is removed from power. The Northern Alliance will hold elections for new leadership. Alpha Marcus has surrendered. Alpha Riker has surrendered. The new Omega rights laws stand. Cheers erupted from my forces. Even many of the defeated coalition wolves looked relieved. Only Darius remained defiant. You can't do this. I am the rightful alpha of my territory. You were. Past tense. I gestured, and two of my warriors stepped forward to take him into custody. You'll be tried for war crimes and crimes against Omegas. Your fate will be decided by a council that includes Omega representatives. As Darius was dragged away, still shouting threats and curses, I allowed myself a moment of exhaustion. The battle had taken less power than I'd expected, but it had still drained me. Celine appeared at my side. You did it. You actually did it. Did what? Won one battle. Darius won't be the last to resist. No, but you proved something today. You proved that a Moonborn can stand against multiple Alpha Kings and win. You proved that Omegas don't have to accept oppression. You proved that change is possible, Celine smiled. Word of this victory will spread. Other territories will comply rather than face you in battle. You've changed everything, Sarah. That night, we made camp in the valley. My wolves, because they were mine now. Whether I wanted them or not, celebrated the victory. Omega wolves approached me constantly, thanking me, crying, telling me stories of the abuse they'd endured and how they finally felt hope. It was humbling and heartbreaking. I found a quiet spot away from the celebration and sat alone, looking up at the moon. Quite a day, a voice said behind me. I turned to find Riker approaching, hands raised to show he meant no harm. What do you want? I asked, not hostile, just tired. To talk, if you'll allow it. He sat down several feet away, respecting my space. I can't stop thinking about the day I rejected you, how you stood there, broken and crying, and I felt nothing but contempt. I thought I was so superior, so right. You were young and stupid, I said. We both were. But I was cruel. There's a difference between making a mistake and deliberately humiliating someone in front of the entire pack. Riker looked at his hands. I rejected you because Vivian convinced me that having a weak Luna would make me look weak. That power mattered more than the mate bond. And now? Now I know I gave up the most extraordinary person I'll ever meet because I was too insecure to see her worth. He looked at me. The mate bond. I know we both accepted the rejection, but my wolf never let go. I can still feel you sometimes, especially now that you're so powerful. And I have to know. Is there any chance, any possibility that you could forgive me, that we could? No. The word was gentle but final. I don't hate you, Riker. I don't even blame you anymore. You were a product of a broken system, taught to value the wrong things. But forgive you enough to rekindle the mate bond? To be with you? I shook my head. That girl who loved you died the day you rejected her. I'm someone different now. Because of your power? Because of my experiences. The power is just a tool. But 3 years of surviving alone, of learning my worth, of discovering my purpose. That changed me fundamentally. I can't go back to being the girl who needed an alpha's approval to feel valuable. Riker nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, I think you're magnificent. Terrifying and beautiful and more powerful than any wolf I've ever encountered. You're exactly what our world needs. Thank you. That means more than you know. I stood. You can be part of the new world we're building, Riker. Be the alpha your people need. Fair, just, protective of all wolves regardless of rank. That's how you make amends for the past. I will. I promise. He stood too. And Sarah, I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you found your power, even if it means I'll spend the rest of my life regretting what I lost. I left him there and returned to camp feeling lighter somehow. Closure, maybe. The last thread connecting me to my past had finally been cut. 6 months after the Battle of Silverpine Valley, the werewolf world had transformed. The new Omega rights laws had been implemented across all territories. Forced matings were illegal. Omegas could leave packs freely. Abuse of Omegas carried severe penalties. It wasn't perfect. Some alphas found loopholes, some packs still discriminated subtly, but it was progress. Real, measurable progress. The Northern Alliance had elected a new Alpha King, a progressive wolf named Alexander who actually believed in Omega equality. He'd become one of my strongest allies. Alpha Elena had implemented even more reforms in the Southern Territories, creating Omega-led councils to advise on pack matters. Other territories were following her example. And I'd become something I never intended. They called me the Omega Empress. It started as a joke, some Omega wolf saying I was the Empress of all Omegas. But it caught on. Soon wolves across the continent were using the title, and it became official. I ruled from a new seat of power in the Mistwood. Celine had helped me build a keep there, a place where any Omega could come for sanctuary, training, or justice. It became known as Moonhaven, and it quickly grew into a small city. But I didn't rule alone. I'd established a council of advisors, Omegas, Betas, and progressive alphas, who helped me make decisions and implement policies. Alpha Eleanor was part of it. So was Marcus, who'd proven his sincerity by completely reforming the eastern provinces. Even Riker had a seat, representing the Western Territories. He'd kept his promise, becoming a fair and just leader. We'd developed an odd friendship, not romantic, but based on mutual respect and shared goals. Celine served as my chief advisor, helping me navigate the political complexities of ruling without becoming a tyrant. You're doing well, she told me one evening as we reviewed petitions from various packs. Better than I expected, honestly. Most people who gain this much power become corrupted by it. I remember what it's like to be powerless, I said. That keeps me grounded. Still, you've gone from rejected Omega to the most powerful wolf alive in less than 2 years. That would go to anyone's head. It helps that I have people around me who aren't afraid to call out my mistakes. I grinned at her. Like you, reminding me constantly that I'm still just a wolf who makes errors in judgment. Someone has to keep you humble. A knock at the door interrupted us. One of my guards entered looking nervous. Your Grace, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Who? She won't give her name, but she's... The guard hesitated. She smells like you, like Moonborn. I froze. That's impossible. I'm the last... Maybe not, Celine said, her expression intrigued. Send her in. The woman who entered was young, maybe 20, with silver hair and eyes that glowed with familiar power. She wore simple travelling clothes and looked exhausted, but the pendant around her neck was identical to mine. Who are you? I asked, standing. My name is Luna Ashwood. She met my eyes. I'm your cousin. Our fathers were brothers. The world tilted. I didn't know I had family, I whispered. Neither did I until recently. My father hid our heritage even from me, just like yours did. But when you revealed yourself at the summit, When your power awakened fully, it triggered mine too. Luna touched her pendant. I've been searching for you for months. There are things you need to know about the Moonborn, about why we were really hunted, about what's coming. What's coming? Luna's expression turned grave. The Alpha Kings, even the good ones, they fear you. They've seen what you can do, how you can override their authority, how you could control all of werewolf society if you chose. Some are plotting against you. Let them plot. I've faced down armies. Not like this. They're not going to attack you directly. They're going to attack what you've built, Moonhaven, your reforms, the Omega protection laws. They're going to dismantle everything from within, using politics and manipulation instead of force. Selene cursed. A war we can win. Political sabotage is harder to fight. What do you suggest? I asked Luna. We need to unite the Moonborn. There are more of us. I've felt at least 3 others awakening in the past months. If we work together, we can protect what you've started, can ensure the reforms last beyond your lifetime. A Moonborn Council, Selene said thoughtfully. Multiple voices instead of one. It would actually strengthen your position, make it less about you personally, and more about the principles. I looked at Luna. This cousin I'd never known existed, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Family. Tell me everything, I said. About our bloodline, about the others, about this conspiracy. And then we'll figure out how to protect what we've built. Luna smiled, relieved. That's why I came. Because you need allies, Sarah. Even empresses can't stand alone forever. She was right. And as we talked through the night, planning and strategizing, I realized that my journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. 1 year later, the Moonborn Council was officially established, with 5 members including Luna and myself. We'd found the other awakened Moonborn, scattered across the continent, hidden in various packs, all of them discovering their power in the wake of my public revelation. Together, we'd strengthened the Omega rights reforms, closed loopholes, and established systems to prevent backsliding. Moonhaven had grown into a true city, home to thousands of wolves who'd fled oppression. The political conspiracy Luna had warned about never materialized, not because it wasn't real, but because the presence of multiple Moonborn made the plotters reconsider. 5 wolves with godlike powers were significantly more intimidating than 1. I stood on the balcony of Moonhaven Keep, watching the sun set over my city, thinking about how far I'd come. 4 years ago, I'd been a broken Omega, rejected and cast out, believing I was worthless. Now I was an empress, a legend, a force that had reshaped werewolf society. Thinking deep thoughts? Selena asked, joining me on the balcony. Just reflecting on the journey, from Omega to Empress, from powerless to unstoppable, from rejected to... I paused. I was going to say accepted, but that's not quite right. No, you're not just accepted, you're revered, feared, respected, loved by some, hated by others, but impossible to ignore. My father would be proud, I think. He would be. You've done what the Moonborn were always meant to do. Protect the vulnerable, challenge injustice, bring balance. Selene squeezed my shoulder. And you've done it while remaining yourself, not letting the power corrupt you. I had good teachers, I smiled at her. Below us in Moonhaven's main square, I could see Omega wolves moving freely, laughing, training, living without fear. Children played without being told they were worthless. Young wolves discovered their gifts without being crushed by expectations of weakness. This was what I'd fought for. This was worth everything I'd sacrificed. A commotion at the gates drew my attention. A group of travelers was arriving, refugees from some distant pack, looking for sanctuary. My guards were already moving to help them, to offer food and shelter and safety. This happened daily now. Word had spread that Moonhaven was a place where any wolf could find protection, regardless of rank or past. We turned no one away. New arrivals, Selene observed. Your city keeps growing. Good, there's plenty of room. I turned from the balcony. Come on, let's go welcome them properly. Show them that here, everyone matters. As we walked down to greet the newcomers, I thought about Riker's rejection one more time. Not with pain or regret, but with gratitude. He'd thought he was destroying me when he cast me out. Instead, he'd freed me to become who I was always meant to be. And now, 4 years later, while he ruled his territory as a middling alpha king, I ruled an empire. While he dealt with pack politics and border disputes, I reshaped werewolf society itself. While he'd settled for Vivian, a adequate Luna but nothing special, I'd become legendary. The Omega he'd rejected as worthless now made Alpha Kings kneel with a thought. The girl he'd dismissed as weak had become the most powerful wolf alive. The mate he'd thrown away now ruled them all. I'd told him the truth that night after the battle. I didn't hate him. I'd moved beyond hatred, beyond the need for revenge, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a small, petty part of me that enjoyed the irony. He'd rejected me for being too weak to be his Luna. I'd become too powerful to ever be anyone's Luna. I was an empress now, and empresses didn't need alphas to validate their worth. They made their own destiny. As I reached the new arrivals, a family of 4 Omegas, battered and scared but hopeful, I smiled and extended my hand. "Welcome to Moonhaven," I said. "You're safe now. You're home." The mother's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Your Grace. We've heard stories about you, about how you protect Omegas, how you stood up to the Alpha Kings. You're a legend. I'm just a wolf who refused to accept that weakness was my destiny." I helped them to their feet. "Come, let's get you settled. You'll find that here, Omega isn't a rank that limits you. It's just who you are. And who you are is enough." As I led them into the city, I felt the pendant warm against my chest, felt my father's presence in some distant way. "You did well, sweetheart," I imagined him saying. "You became everything I hoped you'd be." And for the first time in my life, I truly believed I was enough. Not because an alpha accepted me, not because I'd proven myself to those who'd rejected me, but because I'd proven it to myself. I was Sarah Ashwood, Moonborn, Omega Empress, the wolf they'd called worthless, the mate they'd rejected, the legend they'd created, and I ruled them all. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment for us.